Chapter 22:11. Chu Luiwei stopped in his tracks. Ming Shu chuckled and replied, "That's right. Miss Mu's news is really fast. The second master has just returned, and you already know." Mu Yafeng smiled gently. "The second master has been away for several years, and we can't help but miss him. May I know if he's upstairs now? I have something to discuss with him." Ming Shu immediately said, "He's here. Miss Mu, please wait for a moment. I'll go ask for instructions for you." "Sorry to trouble you, Lord Ming. It's just a small matter, not worth mentioning." Ming Shu went upstairs after he finished speaking. The entire treasure pavilion was under their control, so they didn't have to worry about anything happening after leaving for a while. However, after Ming Shu went upstairs, the people on the first floor were surprised and started discussing in low voices. "The second master is back? When did this happen? Why didn't I hear about it? It seems to be just a few days ago. We don't know the details, but there have been rumors in private. However, the second master hasn't shown up since he came back. He left for a long time this time, right? I don't know where he went, but some people guess that he left the Illusion God Palace." "Shoo. We don't dare to talk about this kind of thing. Besides, it's not important. What's important is that the second master is back, so the treasure pavilion's main warehouse should be open now, right? Since he left, there are only 2 small warehouses left in operation, and many things are very scarce." "That's true. But then again, Mu Yafeng's reputation is really big. She directly asked to see the second master as soon as she arrived. If it were me, I wouldn't have such confidence. After all, she's the most promising person to complete the star path, and she's highly regarded by the 7th Divine Envoy and the others. Naturally, she's different from us." Mu Yafeng stood there with her hands crossed and placed on her lower abdomen. Her expression was calm. Only the subtle ripples in her eyes could be seen, and there was a hint of loftiness. After a while, Ming Shu came down from upstairs. She looked up, and a smile appeared on her lips again. "Lord Ming, can I go up now?" However, Ming Shu's expression was a little strange. He hesitated for a moment and declined tactfully. "Miss Mu, the second master said he's not feeling well today, so he won't see any guests. If you have anything to say, you can pass it on to me." As soon as he said that, the entire first floor fell silent. The smile on Mu Yafeng's face instantly froze. "Lord Ming, what do you mean by this?" Yu was also in a very difficult position, but he didn't dare to disobey the second master's words. "Second master has indeed been working hard recently. Please forgive me." He was determined not to let her go up. Mu Yafeng pursed her lips. In the past, when she came, the second master would never refuse to see her. As for not feeling well, it was just an excuse. He just didn't want to see her. However, she didn't seem to have offended that person, did she? Mu Yafeng thought about it but still could not figure it out. She could only suppress these thoughts for now. "Actually, I came here today mainly because I haven't seen second master for a few years, so I came to pay you a visit. But since it's still inconvenient for you, then, forget it." Zhao heaved a sigh of relief, and the smile on his face became much more sincere. "Thank you for your understanding, Miss Mu. Then you can take a look around. If there's anything you like, just tell me." Mu Yafeng smiled faintly. "You're too kind. Is the second volume of the mythical diagram of fire on the second floor of the treasure pavilion still there?" Ming Shu said, "This? It's still there." The mythical diagram of fire was divided into 2 volumes. It recorded thousands of Grandmaster-level Xian formations and had rather detailed annotations. It was extremely beneficial for the cultivation of Xian masters. In comparison, the first volume was simpler, while the second volume was much more difficult. Because of this, the price of the second volume was several times that of the first volume. Even for the people of the Illusory God Palace, it was an absolutely sky-high price. Mu Yafeng had bought the first volume before. It was precisely because of that she could greatly reduce the time it took to understand the Xian formations on the Star Passage. A few days ago, she was trapped again and had no choice but to give up and return from the Star Passage. She studied it alone for several days, but she had no clue at all. At this time, She realized that the seventh divine emissary's words were not an exaggeration. If she really did it herself, she might not succeed even after a few years. However, she really didn't want to wait that long, so she thought of the second volume of the mythical diagram of fire. Although this thing was very, very expensive, and buying it would definitely make her bankrupt and even cause her to be in debt. However, she still made up her mind. That was what she was here for today. Hearing that the thing was still there, she revealed a smile. Since it's still there, I want to go to the second floor and buy it. As she spoke, she lifted her foot and was about to go to the second floor. However, Zhao suddenly reached out and stopped her. Miss Mu, wait. It's not good for you to go up to the second floor. Mu Yafeng never thought that she would be stopped here and was stunned for a moment. But. The second floor of the treasure pavilion was indeed not a place that anyone could go up to. However, she was not included among these people. In the past, she had been to the treasure pavilion many times, and she had always been able to freely enter and exit the second floor. Why was it suddenly not possible this time? Is Lord Ming worried that I can't afford the second volume of the mythical diagram of fire? That's not it. Zhao rubbed his hands, as if deliberating over his words. I'm afraid I can't sell the second volume to you. Mu Yafeng was stunned. Ming Shu paused for a moment, then explained. The second master means, from today onwards, only the first floor will be open. The second and third floors will be closed for the time being. Similarly, the items inside will not be sold. The second volume of the mythical diagram of fire is on the second floor, so it's naturally included. Please go back. Mu Yafeng had never been treated like this. Not only did he not allow her to go up to the second floor, but he also did not intend to sell the items. Her face turned cold. Lord Ming, the treasure pavilion is open for business. I'm afraid it's inappropriate for you to reject people like this. Although the people beside her did not say anything, their expressions showed that they agreed with Mu Yafeng's words. Although there were many good things on the first floor, everyone knew that the best were on the second and third floors. Now that they were not allowed to go up and they were not even selling the items, what was going on? Zhao curled the corners of his mouth, and his tone was polite but did not allow for any rebuttal. Miss Mu, it seems that it's not up to you to decide how the treasure pavilion does business. But Sister Yafeng isn't wrong. How can you open the door and not sell things? It's not like we can't afford it. The woman standing next to Mu Yafeng could not help but mutter in a low voice. However, the room was very quiet at this time, and her words were heard clearly by everyone present. The last trace of a smile on Zhao's face dissipated. With one hand behind his back, his voice turned cold. This is the first master's intention. Mu Yafeng was shocked. A chill rose from the soles of her feet and rushed to the top of her head. Chapter 22:12. This treasure pavilion was founded by the first master. Even if everything here was burned down, the first master would only be there for the show, let alone closing it down. Miss Mu, I know that the seventh divine emissary thinks highly of you, but even if he came here personally today, he can't go up to the second floor. Please consider it carefully. Zhao was trying to persuade them nicely, but he was very unhappy with Mu Yafeng and her servant's attitude. The reason why he was being courteous was because of Jin Yunlai. Unfortunately, Mu Yafeng didn't seem to realize this. She hadn't even finished the star path, but she was already putting on airs. It was really funny. Although Ming Shu didn't say these words clearly, his expression couldn't be more obvious. Mu Yafeng only felt her face burning as if she had been slapped hard. She had been in the illusory god palace for so many years. Because of the seventh divine emissary's support, the others had always been very polite to her. This was the first time she had been rebuked like this. However, the other party was someone she couldn't afford to offend. Then we'll come back another day. Miss Mu, I won't see you off. Ming Shu's casual words almost choked Mu Yafeng to death. She hurriedly said goodbye and pulled her servant away. The atmosphere on the first floor instantly became very awkward. Soon, the others left one after another. Soon, only Chu Luiyue and the other two were left on the first floor. It wasn't that they had other ideas, but they didn't want to make a wasted trip. In any case, the master and servant trio were quite generous. Master, I want this, and this. Little Hachi pointed at a few herbs in the long cabinet. Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows slightly. You know how to choose. All of them were expensive items. Little Hachi blinked. Master, will you buy them? Chu Luiwei gently knocked her forehead. As soon as he said that, Mingshu's voice was full of praise. This lady has good eyesight. Chu Luiwei turned his head and saw that Mingshu had unknowingly arrived beside them. At this moment, the coldness on his face had completely disappeared and was replaced by a warm smile. These are all top-notch medicinal herbs. Chu Luiwei was speechless. Wasn't this Lord Ming very arrogant just now? Why did she suddenly become so enthusiastic in the blink of an eye? With Zhenbao Pavilion status, it seemed that there was no need for them to praise themselves like this, right? However, these thoughts only flashed through his mind. Since the other party had given her so much face, she naturally welcomed it. Chu Luiwei's red lips curved slightly. The things in the treasure pavilion are naturally the best. He smiled and cupped his hands. This humble one has long heard of Miss Shangguan's great name. I'm really happy to see him today. Miss Shangguan, please take a look. If there's anything you want, just tell me. If there wasn't any here, there were plenty in the storehouse. Chu Luiwei was speechless. Isn't this Lord Ming a little too enthusiastic? This is completely different from his attitude towards Mu Yafeng and the others just now. Thank you, Lord Ming. We came here today because of your reputation. As for what we want to buy, we'll have to take a look for a while. Why don't you go ahead first? Ming Shu chuckled. No hurry, no hurry. Aren't there only a few of you left in the shop now? Chu Luiwei was speechless. Thank you in advance, Lord Ming. What are you thanking me for? Ming Shu waved his hand and walked to the long cabinet filled with precious medicinal herbs. Look, these Futian orchids are all thousands of years old. They were just picked and are very fresh. And this spirit bamboo is specially cultivated with ice spring irrigation. Its medicinal effect is very pure. Little Hachi's beautiful eyes sparkled. Mistress, these are all really good things. Speaking of which, they are much more precious than the soul sky fruit. Chu Luiwei coughed. Of course, she knew that these were all rare treasures, but the price. May I ask Lord Ming, if you want to buy these things, what do you need to exchange for them? Before coming, Xiao Ran had already said that Precious Treasure Pavilion didn't accept money and only accepted barter. Although she had many things on her, there weren't many that she could take out to exchange. Ming Shu laughed. If Miss Shangguan wants these, you don't need to exchange for anything. You just need to do me a favor. What favor? I heard that Miss Shangguan is extremely talented in Xian masters, so I would like to ask you to copy a scroll for me. Chu Luiwei immediately understood something. A Xian formation diagram? That's right. Ming Shu nodded. Actually, this wasn't anything new. There were countless Xian formations in this world, but it was impossible for ordinary people to engrave a Xian formation for future generations to see and comprehend. Only Xian masters who were strong enough could do it. But there are so many Xian masters in the illusory God Palace. Who knows how many of them are stronger than me? Why did Lord Ming choose me? Ming Shu smiled. Naturally, it's because you are currently the most talented person in the illusory God Palace. Seeming to have seen her confusion, he continued to explain. Before you, the most outstanding person was Mu Yafeng, but your performance on the star path had already completely crushed her. So, we are more at ease if we leave this matter to you. In other words, Mu Yafeng didn't have the qualifications. Chu Luiwei pondered and felt that this wasn't unreasonable. You want me to copy the Xian formation diagram of a great Xian master? No. Ming Shu shook his head and said word by word. It's the mythical flame diagram. Chapter 22:13. On the second floor. Yan Gu pressed his ear against the door and held his breath as he listened. Hearing Zhao's words, he pounded his chest in frustration. This idiot! How can he be so direct? He had only asked Zhao to test the waters and see if he could send out the mythical flame diagram quietly. How could it be so obvious in the end? Even an idiot could tell that something was wrong. He was already upset that his master did not allow him to show his face. Now that he asked Zhao to do something on his behalf, he made it so difficult. Immediately after, he heard his master's wife only pause for a moment before she quickly agreed. Okay. She did not seem to hesitate and did not ask anything. Ming Shu immediately said, "Please." Jianghu slapped his forehead and took a deep breath. He had not been back for a few years, but this idiot did not improve at all. He could not count on him, but fortunately he had given it away. He would take it one step at a time. "Miss Shangguan, please follow me." Hearing that the two were about to go upstairs, Jianghu quickly took a few steps back and completely concealed his aura. After taking 2 steps, Zhao suddenly thought of something and looked at little Hachi and Hua Shuangshuang. "Well, if you have taken a fancy to anything, just take it. I only need to make a list. In the future, these will all be on Miss Shangguan's account." The few of them were smart people, so they immediately understood what he meant. Only Chu Luiyue could go up to the 2nd floor. Chu Luiyue did not mind and looked at the two. "Just take your pick. You can go back when you're done. I might be a little late." Hua Shuangshuang said, "Master, we have nothing to do when we go back. Why don't we just wait here?" Chu Luiyue smiled and shook his head. "No need. I'll go back when I'm done here." Seeing Chu Luiyue's firm attitude, Hua Shuangshuang and little Hachi could not stop him and could only agree. In a place like Zhenbao Pavilion, there was no need for them to do anything in private, so there was nothing to worry about. Little Hachi was indeed lacking in medicinal herbs. Seeing that she had the support of her master, she didn't hold back and directly took away half of the wall. Chu Luiyue. "Little Hachi, I remember that you took a lot from Sanson. Why do you want so much now?" Little 8 blinked and smiled enchantingly, saying coquettishly, "Master, you know that I'm very picky when it comes to these kinds of things. Naturally, I'll use them faster." Chu Luiyue tapped between her eyebrows. Alright, just take it away. If it's not enough, we can always come back again." Little Hachi's beautiful eyes sparkled. "Master, the way you spend money for me is the most beautiful." Chu Luiyue was already immune to her tricks. After Zhao finished registering, he sent the two of them away. Phew! Seeing the two of them leave with satisfaction, Chu Luiyue let out a long sigh of relief. Was it easy to raise a family? "Miss Shangguan, please come with me." From beginning to end, Zhao was very patient. Chu Luiyue nodded. "Thank you, Master Ming." As they spoke, the two of them walked toward the stairs in the middle. Chu Luiyue came to the front and took a look. The stairs didn't look any different from the stairs in other places. She originally thought that there would be a barrier or something. However, after thinking about it carefully, she felt that Zhenbao Pavilion was more mysterious and powerful. There were no barriers or defenses, and there weren't many people here. It looked casual, but in fact, it was all based on powerful strength and background. "Miss Shangguan, please." Zhao turned sideways and raised his hand, inviting Chu Luiyue to go up first. Chu Luiyue was about to move when she suddenly heard a surprised voice from the door. "Master Ming, what are you doing?" This voice was somewhat familiar. Chu Luiyue half turned and looked back, raising her eyebrows slightly. Standing outside the door and looking over here with a shocked expression, who else could it be but Mu Yafeng? "Miss Mu, why are you here again?" Seeing that it was Mu Yafeng, the smile on Zhao's face faded a lot, and his tone was no longer as polite and eager as when he was talking to Chu Luiyue. Mu Yafeng opened her mouth. On the way back, she suddenly remembered that she still lacked some herbs besides the mythical flame diagram, so she turned back. However, she didn't expect to see such a scene as soon as she arrived. What were they doing? If she didn't hear wrongly, Zhao was actually inviting that Shangguan Yu upstairs? She had just been rejected this request. It had only happened in the blink of an eye. She saw clearly that Zhao's attitude toward that Shangguan Yu was several times better than his attitude toward her. Even when she came here in the past and Zhao treated her politely, she had never received such treatment. Mu Yafeng's mind was in a mess, and it took her a while to find her voice. "I just wanted to come back to buy some herbs, but..." "Master Ming, didn't you just say that the 2nd and 3rd floors are no longer open to the public from today onwards? What's going on now?" She tried her best to suppress the surging emotions in her heart, but her words still revealed some displeasure and anger from being deceived. Zhao stepped forward and said indifferently, "Yes. I did say that it's not open to the public, but Miss Shangguan is not an outsider." Chu Liyue's eyelashes trembled slightly. Mu Yafeng's face instantly turned pale. "Master Ming, your words. Miss Shangguan is extremely talented in mystic cultivation, so we have specially hired Miss Shangguan to duplicate the mystic formation diagrams in the treasure pavilion. In this way, Miss Shangguan is naturally not an outsider." Mu Yafeng almost suspected that she was hearing things and laughed in anger. "Master Ming, are you sure?" "I admit that she is indeed very outstanding, but with her current level, she doesn't have the qualifications to do so, right? Actually, it wasn't the first time the treasure pavilion had done such a thing. After all, many of the mystic formation diagrams here were very precious, and there were many people who wanted them. The best way was to ask someone to duplicate them. However, this matter involved a lot of things, so the treasure pavilion was usually very strict when it came to the personnel review. When Mu Yafeng wanted to obtain the mythical flame diagram, she had also taken the initiative to mention this, but she was still rejected in the end. She never expected that the treasure pavilion would directly invite Shangguan Yu, who wasn't even a great grandmaster and didn't even have a bloodline totem. If this news were to spread, who knew how many people would be taken aback? If Miss Shangguan isn't qualified, then I'm afraid that no one in the illusory god palace is qualified. She chuckled. "Miss Mu, allow me to remind you. When you walked the Star Road, it took you a total of 27 days to walk from the Heavenly Gate to the Grand Mystic Monarch Division's Mystic Formation area. Moreover, this doesn't include the several times you went to the Star Road to study those mystic formations separately. And Miss Shangguan went straight to the illusory god palace when she just arrived. She didn't even use up the remainder of your time. What position do you have now to point out that she isn't qualified?" Chapter 22:14. Mu Yafeng had never thought that there would be a time when she would be humiliated like this. Even if the other party didn't say a single vulgar word, even if the other party's attitude was still polite and courteous. But those words still made her blush and extremely embarrassed. Because they were all the truth. In the illusory god palace, geniuses were as common as clouds. The fact that she could have her current reputation and status was enough to prove that she was indeed very outstanding. But something like talent was most afraid of comparison. If you were first, then others naturally had nothing to say. But if one day a person suddenly appeared and easily crushed you, how would you feel? Mu Yafeng didn't like Chu Liyue from the start precisely because she knew too well what kind of shocking talent it meant to be able to complete that segment of the Star Road in just a few days. Previously, she could still comfort herself that she was just a great mystic king teacher and there was nothing to take to heart. But now, Qi's actions were equivalent to exposing everything. It bluntly reminded her that she was indeed inferior to Qi Wuyao. Although Miss Shangguan is only a great mystic king teacher now, I can foresee that she should be able to break through to great grandmaster before long. Miss Mu, you are also a mystic master, so you should know how important talent is to a mystic master. Martial artists could perhaps make up for their lack of talent through hard work, but mystic masters really couldn't. Without comprehension and spirit energy, even if you stared at a Xian formation diagram for 10 or 100 years, you still wouldn't be able to comprehend it. The higher the level, the more obvious the difference in talent between mystic masters was. This was also why they had rejected Mu Yafeng's request. There was no other reason other than they didn't think highly of her. Although Ming Shu didn't say these unspoken words, how could Mu Yafeng not understand? She slowly clenched her fists in her sleeves. "Oh right, Miss Mu said you wanted some medicinal herbs? It's nothing important. Since Lord Ming is busy today, I'll come another day." Mu Yafeng gritted her teeth and tried her best to keep her expression calm. "Then I won't send you off." Lord Ming smiled and looked at Chu Liyue. "Please." Chu Liyue nodded slightly and walked up the stairs. Mu Yafeng turned and left. The staircase in the middle of the treasure pavilion spiraled upwards. The entire staircase was hollow and made of high-quality wood. Walking on it, one could even smell the faint fragrance of wood. Chu Luiwei walked up step by step and soon arrived at the second floor. The layout of the second floor was very different from the first floor. There were no treasures here. Instead, there were private rooms. The privacy was very strong. Miss Shangguan, the things are in the innermost room. Ming Shu also followed and led Chu Luiwei away. Chu Luiwei scanned her surroundings, but she didn't say anything as she followed him forward. Ming Shu opened the door. Chu Luiwei walked in. Although the room wasn't big, the decorations were elegant and grand. Everything that could be seen and used was of the highest quality. Ming Shu went to the bookshelf by the wall and took down a wooden box. He turned around and handed it to Chu Luiwei. The first and second volumes of the mythical flame diagram are here. You can start with the first volume. Everything you need for copying is on the table over there. Feel free to use it. Chu Luiwei looked in the direction he pointed. There were indeed many things on the table by the windowsill. She took the box, thought for a moment, and asked, "Copying Xian formations requires a lot of time and energy. Especially since my realm isn't high enough, I might not be able to complete it immediately. Miss Shangguan, you don't have to worry about this. We all know that this is a delicate job and can't be rushed. You can come again when you have time. As for the things that Little Hachi and Little Hachi took away just now." He took out a list and quickly looked through it again. He chuckled. "You only need to copy 10 great Xian King Masters' Xian formations. Of course, if it's a great Grandmaster level Xian formation, one is more than enough." Chu Luiwei calculated for a moment. This price wasn't expensive. If it was someone else, they might find it a little troublesome. However, this wasn't a problem for her. Of course, she also wanted to take a look at the mythical flame diagram and see what kind of secrets it hid. "If there's nothing else, then I won't disturb you anymore." As she spoke, she planned to leave. Chu Luiwei suddenly called out to him. "I still have a presumptuous request. I wonder if it's convenient for Lord Ming to help? Just say it." "If I can help, I definitely won't refuse," Ming Shu immediately said. Chu Luiwei looked at him, the corners of her lips slowly curling up. "I admire Treasure Pavilion's second master very much. I wonder if I have the chance to meet him?" Ming Shu didn't expect her to say this and was momentarily stunned. "Second master hasn't been feeling well recently. He probably can't meet you." "I know. What I mean is, when it's convenient for second master, I want to meet him and thank him in person." Ming Shu hesitated for a moment. Since Chu Luiwei had already put it this way, there seemed to be no reason to refuse. "Then, I'll ask second master for instructions later. However, Miss Shangguan will probably have to wait a little longer." "It's fine." Chu Luiwei had already guessed that this second master wasn't easy to meet. Ming Shu's answer was also within her expectations. "I can wait." Only then did she relax and turn to leave. The room door was closed. Chu Luiwei was the only one left in the room. She stared at Ming Shu's departing figure for a while before retracting her gaze and walking over to open the wooden box. 2 books were lying quietly inside. Chu Luiwei took them out. On the surface, it didn't look much different from ordinary Xian formation diagrams. Chu Luiwei first picked up the first volume and flipped it open. What entered her eyes was a great Xian Emperor Master Xian formation. Very familiar. Chu Luiwei wasn't surprised and turned to the second page. Still very familiar. Her expression didn't change as she continued to turn to the third page and smiled. Splitting a great Xian Master Xian formation into several great Xian Emperor Master Xian formations. You really know how to have fun. Her tone was light, and there was a smile on her lips. Then she unhurriedly flipped through the first volume. Indeed, as the rumors said, the Xian formations on this book were highly overlapping with those on the star path. Moreover, each Xian formation was marked with annotations. Some had more, some had less. However, it was extremely useful for comprehending Xian formations. Chu Luiwei leaned back in her chair and picked up the second volume. Mu Yafeng left the treasure pavilion. She wanted to go back directly, but there seemed to be something stuck in her chest, making her feel suffocated and uncomfortable. The scene just now kept replaying in her mind, stabbing at her temples until they hurt. Finally, she took a deep breath, turned around, and headed in the direction of the illusory god palace. Jin Yunlai looked up from her book and frowned slightly. Mu Yafeng? What is she doing here? Chapter 22:15. I don't know. I just happened to come back from Herb Mountain and bumped into her outside the palace. Shu Jing shook her head. Judging from her complexion, she doesn't look well. Even though Mu Yafeng hid it well, Shu Jing had been the 8th divine emissary for so many years. She should be able to tell what she was thinking. Jin Yunlai thought for a moment, then got up and walked outside. In the entire Illusion God Palace, there were very few people who were qualified to enter and leave the Illusion God Palace freely. Even if Mu Yafeng was about to finish the Star Path, she still needed to wait outside the Illusion God Palace for instructions. By the way, I heard that someone broke Mu Yafeng's record a few days ago? Shu Jing suddenly thought of something and asked. If I remember correctly, it seems that this person's speed is faster than yours? But that was a long time ago. Moreover, divine emissaries were highly respected. Ordinary people would not casually pick someone and compare them to divine emissaries. Jin Yunlai said. That person is called Sheng Guanyu. Her talent is not bad, but unfortunately, she doesn't have a bloodline totem. Shu Jing's expression changed slightly. No totem? She suddenly thought of the fairy-like woman she met at Herb Mountain. It seemed that they were together? Shu Jing's expression became a lot calmer. I see. That's indeed a pity. Jin Yunlai noticed that her tone was a little cold, but she didn't care. Arriving at the gate, Jin Yunlai saw Mu Yafeng at first glance. Mu Yafeng immediately went forward and bowed. Greetings, 7th Divine Emissary. Aren't you studying the Xian formation? Why are you here today? Jin Yunlai went straight to the point. Mu Yafeng lowered her head slightly and said, As you said, it's indeed very difficult to crack the Xian formation. I wanted to go to the treasure pavilion to look for the 2nd volume of the mythical flame diagram. Jin Yunlai narrowed her eyes but didn't say anything. In the Illusion God Palace, many Xian masters yearned for the mythical flame diagram, and many of them bought the 1st volume. However, the 2nd half of the book was very expensive, and very few people could afford it. Mu Yafeng was determined to win the Star Path, so it was normal that she was willing to pay such a huge price to get it. Lord Ming refused to sell the 2nd half of the scroll. Furthermore, he said that from today onwards, the items on the 2nd and 3rd floors would no longer be sold to the public. Jin Yunlai frowned. So sudden? What's the reason? In his memory, Zhenbao Pavilion rarely acted like this. Lord Ming only said that the 2nd master is not feeling well, and this is also the 1st master's intention. Upon hearing those words, Jin Yunlai's expression changed. In that case, you should give up on the 2nd half of the mythical flame diagram. Of course, I know that. Mu Yafeng bit her lip. That's why I left at that time. But who would have thought that Lord Ming would actually invite Sheng Guanyu to the 2nd floor and even invite her to copy the Xian formation diagrams from the precious treasure pavilion? What did you say? Jin Yunlai was also shocked by the news. They chose Sheng Guanyu? Mu Yafeng nodded. They originally went to the precious treasure pavilion to buy herbs, but for some reason, Lord Ming. Also, according to Lord Ming, as long as Sheng Guanyu helps to copy the Xian formation, they can freely use the herbs and other items in the precious treasure pavilion. How can that be? Before Jin Yunlai could speak, she heard Shu Jing's voice behind her. She furrowed her thin brows. They couldn't get the herbs on the Herb Mountain, so they set their sights on the precious treasure pavilion? Jin Yunlai immediately frowned and asked in return. You banned them from going to the Herb Mountain? Digression, come at 6. Chapter 22:16. Shu Jing retorted. It's not that I forbade them from going to Herb Mountain, but that's the rule of Herb Mountain. They don't have a bloodline totem, and they can't take out pills of the same level to exchange. The so-called rule of Herb Mountain was set by you in the first place. Jin Yunlai's eyes flashed with displeasure. Shu Jing pursed his lips and softened his voice. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. I'm doing this for the good of the illusory God Palace. Jin Yunlai retracted his gaze and stopped looking at her. They had known each other for so many years, and he was very clear about Xu Jing's intentions. Herb Mountain stretched for thousands of miles, and countless natural treasures grew there. Its value was immeasurable. Xu Jing just wanted a piece of the pie. The authority to manage Herb Mountain had been delegated to her. As long as she didn't do anything too excessive, the higher-ups wouldn't care. The rules that she had set were strictly divided into ranks, and the winner was the king, while the loser was the bandit, was vividly reflected. Although Jin Yunlai didn't like it, he had to admit that to a certain extent, her actions did indeed have a restraining and urging effect on everyone. Want the best herbs? Then you must take out the corresponding strength to exchange for them. Don't have the qualifications? Then he would just have to increase his strength and make himself more qualified. As for those who really couldn't do it, those people shouldn't even exist in the illusory god palace. No one cared about the life and death of the weak. Although Jin Yunlai's ranking among the oracles was higher than Xu Jing's, each oracle was responsible for different things. Therefore, even if they didn't like each other, they couldn't interfere with each other's affairs. Jin Yunlai also didn't want to continue arguing with Xu Jing on this issue. She only reminded him, I know you're unhappy about this, but don't forget about Zhenbao Pavilion. You can't afford to offend them. Xu Jing's expression tightened. As for Shengguanyu, since Zhenbao Pavilion has the intention to support her, then don't get into trouble. In the future, try not to find trouble with them. Don't bring trouble to yourself in the end. Do you understand? Jin Yunlai's voice became more serious as she stared at Xu Jing. Don't forget, no matter what decision they make, it's not up to us to say no. Just that sentence alone would cause a lot of trouble for the Zhenbao Pavilion if it was spread to them. Xu Jing finally lowered his head under the powerful, almost tangible, scrutinizing gaze. Xu Jing was embarrassed to be reprimanded in front of Mu Yafeng. She didn't stay any longer. She casually found an excuse and left in a hurry. Jin Yunlai only looked at Mu Yafeng after her figure disappeared. You heard what I said just now? His words were filled with undisguised warnings and admonitions. Mu Yafeng was shocked and hurriedly said, Yes, Yafeng will keep that in mind. As she spoke, she lowered her eyes. Her heart was in a mess. If he had known that the treasure pavilion had a powerful background, even the oracle would not have dared to offend them. From the looks of it, the oracle was indeed unwilling to go against the treasure pavilion. He was even willing to take the initiative to avoid them. I'm just curious. I don't know why the treasure pavilion chose her, Mu Yafeng said softly and looked up at Jin Yunlai. Shengguanyu's talent is indeed outstanding, Jin Yunlai said lightly. Although she doesn't have a bloodline totem and can't ascend to heaven and become a god, the treasure pavilion thinks highly of her. It's understandable that they want to copy some Xian formations while she's still in the illusory god palace. However, this is their business. You don't have to worry too much about it. Since you can't get the mythical flame diagram, you can go back and study it. It's the same. The star path is long and countless Xian formations are gathered. It's not easy to completely comprehend it. To Mu Yafeng, it was just a matter of time. Mu Yafeng understood Jin Yunlai very well. She knew that this was his limit. There was no need to continue asking, so she tactfully agreed and turned to leave. Jin Yunlai turned and returned to the illusory god palace. As he walked, he frowned slightly. In fact, what he said to persuade Xu Jing and Mu Yafeng just now couldn't convince himself. He also felt that the treasure pavilion's decision was very strange. But he probably wouldn't have the chance to ask this answer. Chu Luiwei had to leave the illusory god palace in the end. Chu Luiwei spent 4 hours carefully reading the 2 volumes of the mythical flame diagram. To be precise, she finished reviewing. She put down the 2 volumes and rubbed her forehead. Now, she was sure that Debao and the other 2 had been to the illusory god palace before. Or maybe they had left the illusory god palace. In short, she hadn't seen them yet, so she couldn't be sure. However, she wasn't so eager to verify this point now. Ever since she found out that Debao had lied to her that those great Grandmaster Xian formations were just ordinary Xian formations, she had become numb to them. People's hearts are really not what they used to be. After a long time, she finally spat out a sentence weakly. After resting for a while, She put away these chaotic thoughts and started copying the Xian formations from the first volume. The first volume was relatively simpler and easier to copy. Chu Luiyue finished copying the first 10 Xian formations and stayed in the room to regulate her breathing and cultivate. She stayed for a while longer before getting up to leave. Almost at the same time she went out, Ho came out from the room next door. "Miss Shangguan, you're done copying?" Chu Luiyue wasn't surprised that he knew what she was doing. After all, this was his territory. She nodded and handed over the brand new book in her hand. "The 10 Xian formations are all here. Please review them, Lord Ming." Ho took it with a smile. With Miss Shangguan's ability, this one naturally believes in it. Originally, he wanted to say that there was no need to look, but he felt that it would be too much. In the end, he looked through it carefully. After about 15 minutes, he closed the book and praised from the bottom of his heart. "Miss Shangguan is really amazing. You actually copied all 10 Xian formations perfectly in such a short time." Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. "It's good that Lord Ming is satisfied. Then I'll take my leave first." Although she could continue, there was no hurry. She could take it slowly. Besides, the more she came here, the more she would see the second master. And even the first master. "I'll send you off," Ming Shu said hurriedly. Chu Luiyue declined with a smile and finally left alone. After she left, Ho stood at the same spot for a while before turning into another room. "Second master, she's already gone." Jianghu patted his chest. "I know." Ming Shu looked at the book in his hand in amazement and sighed. "This Miss Shangguan is really amazing." Jianghu clicked his tongue. "She's the apple of our first master's eye. Of course she's different." Chapter 22:17. Ming Shu was shocked and almost threw the thing in his hand away. Second master, you mean? Previously, he only heard from Jianghu that this person had an extraordinary identity and must be treated well. Who knew? Jianghu glanced at him. "Don't tell me you kept calling that person Miss Shangguan?" Is there a problem?" Zhao's voice was trembling slightly. He had already vaguely sensed something. Jianghu looked sympathetic. It's okay. Of course, it's okay to call her that outside. Just remember to call her Madam when you're with the first master." "Zhao." "Also, if Mu Yafeng oversteps her boundaries in the future, don't be polite. Just send her away." Jianghu crossed his legs and narrowed his eyes. "As for whether to send her out or to hell, it's up to you. What if you dirty Madam's eyes and ears?" "Zhao." He swallowed his saliva and suddenly felt that the book in his hand seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. After a while, he forced himself to speak. "Mu Yafeng is highly valued by the 7th Oracle. If I overstep my boundaries, I'm afraid it's not appropriate, right? Sending her to hell, isn't it too hasty?" Jianghu leisurely crossed his arms. "Jin Yunlai dares to come and make trouble?" Chu Luiyue came out of the treasure pavilion and did not go back directly. Instead, she went to the Star Road again. At this time, she was standing in the middle of the Star Road. It stretched all the way down to the Divine Gate. It stretched all the way up to the palace of the illusory god. The Star Road was shining brightly. At a glance, there were a few scattered figures on the Star Road. They seemed to be comprehending the Xian formations on the Star Road. Chu Luiyue walked closer and looked down. This was the area of the Great Master's Xian formations. She glanced at the nearest Xian formations and sighed in her heart. She could not help but look back at the palace of the illusory god. If she did not come here, she would never have thought that the pavilion in the sky that appeared in the Red Moon Desert would appear in such a high position in front of her. She wondered if it was really the same as the illusion from before. "Stop looking. You won't have a chance to enter it." A sarcastic voice came from behind. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that it was Cheng Pei. Compared to before, his complexion was rosy, his spirit was glowing, and his aura was much stronger. It was clear that he had benefited a lot since entering the illusory god palace. Chu Luiyue smiled. "I didn't expect Senior Cheng Pei to be so concerned about me." Cheng Pei felt as if his punch had landed on cotton. He immediately let out a sigh of relief and sneered. "I'm just feeling sorry for Master Yu. In the past, in the Divine Ruins world, Lord Yu's talent was outstanding, and there was no one in the limelight who could compete with him. But now that I've arrived here, I'm being neglected. I even have to worry about being chased out at all times. Master Yu, if I were you, I wouldn't have the face to continue staying here. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. If Senior Cheng Pei really thinks that way, then it's the same for you to leave on my behalf. Cheng Pei was speechless. He realized that no matter what he said, it didn't seem to have any effect on Chu Luiyue. Her mental fortitude was extremely strong. Even if the words were so unpleasant to hear, she could still laugh. He snorted. Forget it, I still have something important to do. I'm not as free as Master Yu. With that, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and flew into the distance. Ayu. Dumpling's voice suddenly sounded in her heart. Ayu. Follow him. He has the smell of Grandpa Patriarch. Chu Luiyue was shocked and immediately asked, Are you sure? Is it really Senior Yi Zhao's aura? I'm sure. It must be. Although it's very faint, it's definitely him. Dumpling urged anxiously. Chu Luiyue looked up. Cheng Pei's figure was already far away, as if he was running in a certain direction. That's the lightning pool? Chu Luiyue frowned slightly and muttered uncertainly. She knew where Cheng Pei lived. He definitely wasn't going back to his own place this time. In the distant sky, dark clouds overlapped and a large shadow shrouded the sky. It was indeed the direction of the lightning pool. She didn't have time to think. She immediately moved and followed him. Cheng Pei quickly realized that there was someone behind him. He unintentionally turned around to take a look. Instantly, his expression turned ugly and he asked warily, Why are you following me? Don't tell me you want to fight because of what happened before? Chu Luiyue looked at him without batting an eyelid and smiled faintly. The Illusion God Palace is so big. Other than the Illusion God Palace, where else can I not go? Senior Cheng Pei, aren't you being a little too nosy? Cheng Pei gritted his teeth. Chu Luiyue was clearly following him, but she refused to admit it. However, in his opinion, Chu Luiyue had always been sharp-tongued. It was meaningless to argue with her. He laughed disdainfully. Looks like you're also heading for the lightning pool. But I don't mind telling you that those without a bloodline totem are just wasting their energy. It's better for you to go back as soon as possible. Otherwise, when you reach there, you won't be able to reap any benefits and you'll lose all your face. By then, it'll be too late to regret. Lightning pool? Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Looks like her previous guess was right. Cheng Pei was heading for the lightning pool. Previously, Cheng Pei didn't have the aura of Senior Yi Zhao. Now that he suddenly had it, it was very likely that he accidentally got it. Looking at it now, it probably had something to do with the lightning pool. Chu Luiyue made a prompt decision and continued towards the lightning pool. Cheng Pei originally thought that Chu Luiyue would be moved after hearing those words. However, he didn't expect her to act as if she was provoked by something and quickly headed in that direction. You really won't turn back until you hit the southern wall. You won't cry until you see the coffin. When she reached the lightning pool, she would know how stupid her decision was. Cheng Pei smiled coldly and immediately followed. The lightning pool was quite a distance away from the star path. The closer they got, the more Chu Luiyue realized that there were more people heading towards the lightning pool. She frowned slightly. Didn't Jin Yunlai say that the lightning pool was a place to refine divine weapons? Why were so many people heading in that direction? One had to know that the number of weapon refiners was even fewer than the number of celestial physician. Moreover, that Cheng Pei was just an ordinary god, but he seemed to be very interested in the lightning pool. It was as if there was something amazing there. Ayu, that person just now also had the smell of Grandpa Leader. And this. Dumpling's voice fell into her ears. Chu Luiyue's brows furrowed even more. Finally, she arrived at the lightning pool. She floated in mid-air and looked ahead. She immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. It was a boundless sea of lightning, with surging waves that towered to the heavens. Countless Tianlei were gathered in it. Chapter 22:18. Silver intertwined, and there seemed to be golden light in the depths. It was brilliant. This was a real pool of lightning. The tens of thousands of heavenly lightning bolts that Jianghu had accumulated back then were nothing compared to this. They couldn't even be compared to this. Above the lightning pool, dark clouds gathered, and it was gloomy. In the vast world, half of it was gloomy, while the other half was bright. It was a stark contrast. Even though she was still some distance away from the lightning pool, she could still clearly feel the boundless pressure that was surging within it. Suddenly, she fixed her gaze and saw a man trying to walk towards the lightning pool. He was bathed in lightning and was dazzling. Around him, silver snake-like tianlei flickered. Needless to say, this process was extremely torturous. However, he continued to walk deeper in, towards the place where there were more heavenly lightning and more powerful lightning bolts. At the same time, Chu Liwei also realized that the aura on his body seemed to be gradually strengthening. This is tempering the power in his body? She muttered uncertainly. Master Yu? Why are you here? A familiar voice sounded. Chu Liwei turned her head. Senior Song Qing? Although Song Qing was not familiar with her, there was no big conflict between them. Hence, Chu Liu's attitude was still very polite. Song Qing raised his hand and pointed at the lightning pool. Other than those who had already entered the lightning pool, there were also some people standing by the shore, eager to try. It seems that Master Yu really does not know. This lightning pool can not only refine the divine power in one's body, but it can also temper the divine body. That is why so many people are here. Chu Liwei was shocked. The divine body can also be tempered? In the world of God, it was naturally impossible. However, it is not a problem here. Song Qing stroked his beard. Within that lightning pool, there is an immeasurable amount of heavenly lightning accumulated. Not only can it be used to refine divine weapons, but it can also temper the divine body and increase the power of the cultivator. Not long after we arrived here, we heard about this matter. Many of us have even tried it, and it is indeed quite effective. I guess Master Yu has been busy with the star path, so you found out a little late? As he spoke, he thought of something and glanced at Chu Liwei. Oh right, I heard that Master Yu's divine body is formed from the God-destroying tribulation. You are already very strong. I don't think you need to enter the lightning pool and suffer more. Chu Liu's eyes flickered. In that case, Senior Chengpei has also gone in before? Song Qing nodded. Although he only stayed at the edge for 2 hours, the effect was outstanding. Chu Liu's lips curled up slightly. No wonder I saw Senior Chengpei's strength increase so much in such a short period of time. So this is the reason. Chengpei, who was about to rush over, heard their conversation and snorted. What? Master Yu also wants to go over and take a look? But I advise you to give up on this idea. The fourth divine messenger had already said that the Tianlei force in the lightning pool was not used to refine one's divine power or divine body. Instead, it was used to stimulate the bloodline power in one's body and help the cultivator break through the shackles and ascend to the heavens. I think you don't need to do that, right? Bloodline power. This sounded similar to how Dumpling had used the Tianlei force in the Myriad Wine Spring to break through to the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix. However, the lightning pool was stimulating the bloodline power of the human race. And she, coincidentally, did not. She lowered her eyes slightly and did not get angry at Chengpei's words. Instead, she placed her attention elsewhere. The fourth divine messenger? You've already met him? Song Qing nodded and explained. He came once a few days ago. But he only showed his face once and quickly left. Another divine messenger. Everything in the illusory God Palace seemed to be managed by the divine messengers. She did not know how many divine messengers there were, but all of them were extremely mysterious and powerful. Until now, other than the seventh divine messenger, Jin Yunlai, she had not seen any other divine messengers. Even Jin Yunlai had only seen her once at the very beginning. Chu Liwei thanked him and then moved towards the shore of the lightning pool. Chengpei's brows were tightly knitted together. Soon after, he revealed a somewhat mocking smile. You really don't want to give up? Song Qing frowned. Chengpei, we all came up together. Why do you have to go against Master Yu? I'm going against her? Cheng Pei seemed to have heard a joke. Elder Song, you must have seen what happened that day, right? But she did not do anything wrong. After crossing the sea and crossing the bridge, everyone has to rely on their own abilities. Not only your subordinates, but many of the other aristocratic families and clans were also forced to give up. Speaking of which, we are not close to her. If she didn't help, it would have been. Song Qing's words caused Cheng Pei's face to darken. Elder Song, I respectfully address you as Elder Song because of our past relationship. But it's best if you don't interfere in the matters between me and her. Actually, how could he not understand Song Qing's words? The reason why he had such a bad relationship with Chu Luiyue was mainly because he felt embarrassed that he had been rejected in public when he asked for her help. Song Qing sighed disapprovingly in his heart. Cheng Pei was extremely prideful. He probably would not let this matter go. Besides, I haven't done anything up until now. She was the one who wanted to go to the lightning pool. But it was good to let her try. It would be the most painful if she found out that she was still unable to break through after experiencing the pain of Tianlei. Thinking of this, Cheng Pei's mood improved. He quickly followed behind, waiting to watch a good show. Song Qing looked at the backs of the two people and shook his head. Chu Luiyue quickly arrived at the shore of the lightning pool. There were already a few dozen people standing here. Hearing the commotion, some of them turned around curiously. Some of them recognized her, some of them didn't. However, when they saw the letter on her waist, they quickly confirmed her identity. Chu Luiyue ignored those gazes as she went to a reef and stared at the rumbling sea of lightning in front of her. Dumpling, do you feel something? It's Grandpa Clan leader's aura. He's in the lightning pool. Dumpling's voice was filled with anxiety and worry. But this aura is too scattered. I can't be sure of Grandpa Clan leader's exact location. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. The lightning pool was boundless. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to find someone here. If you go in, can you find him? I don't know. Dumpling's voice was much softer. I want to go in and take a look. Can I? She was a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Naturally, she was not afraid of these Tianlei. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. I'll take you there. Chapter 22:19. Ever since the incident in the Red Moon Desert, Chu Luiyue was much more vigilant. Especially when it came to Dumpling. Yi Zhao was missing, and it was very likely that he was trapped in this lightning pool and could not get out. The entire Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix clan had been forcefully sealed. Chu Luiyue believed that Yi Zhao had put in a lot of effort. He had done so much because he did not want his clansmen to suffer and suffer. Tuanzi was probably one of them. The Illusion God Palace was right behind her. Chu Luiyue did not dare to guarantee that there would not be any accidents. She did not dare to let Dumpling go to the lightning pool alone. She had to go with her. Thinking of this, she did not hesitate and went straight ahead. Then, she stepped into the lightning pool. The surrounding heavenly thunders moved as soon as they heard the commotion and quickly gathered in this direction. Everyone had been sizing her up intentionally or unintentionally. When they saw her enter the lightning pool so easily, they were all stunned. After a short silence, all sorts of discussions broke out. That's Shang Guanyu? She actually went into the lightning pool just like that? Isn't she a little too bold? I heard that she's a venerable god expert, and her divine body is very strong. She might be able to withstand it for a while, but she doesn't have a bloodline totem, right? Then coming to the lightning pool is just torture. Who knows what she's thinking? She gave up on the star path and came to the lightning pool. Maybe she wants to experience the various affairs of the Illusion God Palace in the limited time she has. This way, when she leaves, she won't have any regrets? Chu Luiyue's legs sank into the lightning pool. Several bolts of heavenly lightning gathered around her and soon enveloped most of her body. However, probably because she was still at the edge, the power contained in the Tianlei did not pose any threat to her. She took a deep breath and walked forward. In the room, Sun half leaned on the chair. On the table in front of him, there were dozens of bottles and jars. Is it all here? He asked faintly. Little Hachi, with 2 dark circles under her eyes, fell softly on the small couch next to her. They're all here. Sunyi raised his hand, picked up one of the jade bottles and opened it to take a look. A rich medicinal fragrance wafted out from within. He raised his brows slightly. It's better than last time. It was rare for little Hachi to hear a compliment from him. She struggled to raise her head with a sad expression. Right? If he still hasn't improved, it would be a waste of the dark circles under his eyes that he worked so hard to get. Sunyi nodded. Thank you, Master, for buying those medicinal herbs for you. They are all of excellent quality. Little Hachi pursed her red lips and whispered, Don't worry. Although that's part of the reason, I'm still working very hard. Recently, her alchemy skills had simply skyrocketed. Even she herself was on the verge of tears. Sunyi looked up slightly. Do you have anything to do with the word, hard work? Little Hachi was speechless. If you worked hard enough, you wouldn't still be refining these things now. Sunyi's voice was calm. It didn't sound like a criticism, but a statement of fact. But it was precisely this that was even more stimulating. Little Hachi's eyes were brimming with tears. Big brother, you're still not satisfied with this? Not to mention that these were all Grand Physician level pills, the more important thing was, she didn't just refine 1 or 2 pills. She refined dozens or even hundreds of pills together. If this news were to spread, who knew how many jaws would drop from shock? Big brother was actually still disdainful? Sunyi suddenly looked at Hua Shuangshuang, who was sitting beside him. Liang He is the youngest Grand Physician in the Illusion God Palace? Hua Shuangshuang nodded. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought so many medicinal herbs over every day. Although they didn't ask for them, they had always been there. With a casual glance, they were all valuable items. Little Hachi's mouth twitched. Big brother, are you serious? Did he mean that he wanted her to break through to Grand Physician as soon as possible? Sunyi put away all the pills on the table. It's up to you whether you're willing or not. Little 8 grumbled and lay back down on the bed. Hua Shuangshuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Sunyi and Little Hachi. Big brother said, whether you're willing or not. Not, if you can. The key was Little Hachi's reaction. Right at this moment, Sunyi suddenly sensed something and looked outside. His indifferent and narrow eyes narrowed slightly. Calculating the time, Master should be back from the treasure pavilion, right? Hua Shuangshuang was stunned. Speaking of which, it's been a long time. Why don't I go and take a look? No need. Sunyi shook his head. Master should have gone to the lightning pool. She will be back soon. Hearing him say this, Hua Shuangshuang immediately relaxed. Sunyi paused and asked again. Little Hachi, is Shijing still in Tianling? Little Hachi turned over and said lazily. Should be. Didn't he always follow you, big brother? Later, Master went to the Divine Ruins world and left Shijing to protect Shangguanyu at the Tianling dynasty. Why are you asking this? Sunyi tapped his finger on the table. Let him come back. There was already someone else protecting Shangguanyu, and the Tianling dynasty was basically stable. There was no point in letting Shijing stay there. But Little Hachi and Hua Shuangshuang were both shocked. Isn't this too sudden? Big brother, are you going to summon him to the Illusion God Palace? Sunyi could contact the 13 Yu Guard. But at this time, yes. Sunyi nodded. The heavenly gate is still open. Let him come over directly. Little Hachi blinked. But I don't know how strong fourth brother is now. What if he can't cross that sea and get on that bridge? Sunyi's voice was calm. He's not that weak. Hua Shuangshuang coughed. Little Hachi's face darkened. She felt offended. In fact, Sunyi was right. Ever since the heavenly gate opened, there were indeed people trying to come up. Although there were only a few who succeeded, everyone still went forward dauntlessly, unwilling to give up. Even if there was only a tiny bit of hope, they were willing to give it a try. When Chang Wanzhou woke up, the room was quiet. He sat up and rubbed his temples, feeling as if he had slept for a long time. But fortunately, his head didn't hurt anymore. Recently, he often had headaches, and then unknowingly fell asleep. After coming to the Illusion God Palace, This feeling became more and more obvious. He looked down at Tuan Xnz on his waist. Everything was normal. After thinking for a while, he got up and walked outside. When he came to the courtyard, only Tsin Yi was there. He greeted him and walked out of the door. "Where are you going?" Tsin Yi suddenly asked. Chang Wanzhou looked back. His soft golden hair covered his delicate eyebrows, and the expression in his eyes couldn't be seen clearly. He spoke softly and smoothly. "Back to the Illusion God Palace." Chapter 22:20. There was a moment of silence in the courtyard. Tsin Yi stared at him and said in a deep voice, "What did you just say?" Chang Wanzhou's pupils constricted. Only then did he come back to his senses. A hint of confusion and nervousness appeared on his exquisite and beautiful face. "Did I say?" Of course, he knew what he had said. He had heard it clearly. However, even he didn't know why he would give such an answer. He slowly tightened his grip on the door. For a moment, his heart was in chaos. Tsin Yi paused and said, "Go back and rest for a while." Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips, nodded, and walked back. When he reached the door, he hesitated for a moment. "I want to go out for a walk." Tsin Yi looked up at him. Chang Wanzhou took a deep breath. "Just take a look around the Illusion God Palace." After a moment, Tsin Yi finally nodded. "You know very well where you can go and where you can't." Chang Wanzhou heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you." Just as the words were about to come out of his mouth, he suddenly came to his senses. Actually, he didn't know what to say after that, but it was as if the answer came out of his subconscious. He looked at Tsin Yi nervously. Seeing that Tsin Yi's expression was calm as if he didn't care, he thanked him again and turned to leave. The door was opened and closed. "Return all the things outside to Liang He," Tsin Yi said without looking up. 37 kilometers southeast, Unit 8 on Tongluan Street. Although no one would dare to take them from the door, they would still be a hindrance. Chang Wanzhou made a sound of acknowledgement before leaving. After a moment, Hua Shuangshuang walked out of the house and asked curiously, "Big brother, how do you know where Liang He lives?" During this period of time, Big brother didn't seem to have left the house, right? Tsin Yi glanced at her. "He's been coming back to the same place every day. What's so hard to guess?" Hua Shuangshuang laughed. "Big brother, actually, I think that Liang He is not bad. Although he looks average, he's young and talented. He treats little Hachi well." For so many years, little Hachi's pursuers were as numerous as carps crossing the river, but she had never looked at any of them. She liked to be lively, but she was never reluctant to leave. She was carefree and unrestrained. Tsin Yi said calmly, "If everyone was as careless as you wouldn't even know when little Hachi was kidnapped." Hua Shuangshuang rubbed her nose. "It's just a joke. Who wants to kidnap me?" Hearing her name, little Hachi walked over seductively with a basket of carefully selected herbs. "Big brother, second brother, aren't you looking down on people too much? How could I have been abducted by someone else? On the other hand, if I'm in a good mood, I might just kidnap a few sons-in-law for you to see." Hua Shuangshuang was speechless. "That's not a son-in-law." "Oh, that's brother-in-law?" "Sigh, it's the same." Tsin Yi's heart skipped a beat as he glanced at her. "All right." Little Hachi staggered. "Big brother, I was just joking." "Are you serious?" Tsin Yi smiled meaningfully. 13th you, there's no reason for you to marry into another family. It's not a bad idea to find someone to marry into your family. Peach Blossom Cove. Yen Qing opened a letter. After quickly reading it, he moved his finger and burned the letter completely. Pass down master's orders. Everyone in Yuntian Tower is to wait for orders and is not to head to Heaven's Gate. One of the black-armored soldiers standing in front of him immediately replied, "Yes, sir." He was about to turn and leave when he suddenly paused and asked hesitantly, "Lord Yanqing, you're not going either?" Digression, come at 6. Chapter 22-21. Yanqing's handsome face was calm. "I'm not going. There was no need for that for now. After all, Umo and the others were here. Also, someone needed to watch over the Peach Blossom dock." "Yes." Seeing Yan Qing's firm attitude, the soldier didn't ask any more questions and turned to leave. Only Yan Qing was left in the room. He thought for a while and walked out of the door. Before he could walk out of the courtyard, he bumped into Tang Ku, who had specially come. Yan Qing bowed. "Senior Tang Ku, what's the matter?" Tang Ku chuckled. "It's nothing urgent. It's just that I need some herbs for refining recently." Yan Qing paused. "Do you have a list?" Tang Ku casually handed it over. "Yes, it's all here." Yan Qing. He took it with both hands and put it away without looking at it. "I'll send it to you as soon as possible." Tang Ku rubbed her hands. Hee, this is really troublesome. In the past, it wouldn't have been easy to get these things from Jianghu. But now, he was refining for Chu Luiyue. With Her Highness's permission, Jianghu didn't dare to refuse. Yan Qing's expression was still cold. "It's my duty to begin with. If Senior Tang Ku doesn't have anything else, I'll take my leave." Tang Ku chuckled. Go ahead, go ahead." Recently, Yan Qing had been handling a lot of things in the Peach Blossom dock. He was indeed very busy. Yan Qing nodded slightly and left. Looking at his back, Tang Ku clicked her tongue and couldn't help but murmur. After so many years, his temper hasn't changed at all. Illusory God Palace, Lightning Pool. Chu Luiyue walked forward slowly and firmly. Dazzling silver light surrounded her, and countless bolts of lightning entered her body, refining the divine power in her body bit by bit. The deeper they went, the stronger the power of the mist in Tianlei became. However, Tianlei didn't pose much of a threat to her, probably because her divine body was special. Overall, it was neither painful nor itchy. After walking for a while, she still couldn't detect Yi Zhao's aura. She couldn't help but ask in her heart, "Dumpling, did you notice anything?" Dumpling shook her head. "Not yet. This lightning pool seems to have dispersed Grandpa Patriarch's aura. For now, I can only feel that the aura in the inner part of the lightning pool seems to be thicker." Chu Luiyue replied with a but he wasn't surprised. If it was really that easy to find Yi Zhao, then there would be a problem. Then let's continue to look inside. Why is she still going inside? The deeper we go, the more powerful Tianlei becomes. Even I don't dare to go there. Isn't she a little too bold? Why do I feel like the Tianlei doesn't pose any threat to her? I heard that she's already a god at such a young age and is very talented. But there's no need for this, right? I heard that Shangguan Yu's divine body came from the god annihilation tribulation. She can even withstand the god annihilation tribulation, so this shouldn't be a problem, right? However, I'm still more curious. How far can she go? As Chu Luiyue went deeper into the lightning pool, more and more people turned their attention to her. Cheng Pei, who was refining his divine body at the edge of the lightning pool, opened his eyes impatiently when he heard this. Seeing that the figure was still going toward the lightning, he clenched his fists. Anger and unwillingness surged in his heart. Everyone knew that the deepest part of the lightning pool contained the strongest power and pressure. That was because other than the silver Tianlei, there was also the golden Tianlei. If one could reach that place and undergo the best Tianlei refinement, the benefits would be immeasurable. Which cultivator in the illusory god palace didn't want to go there? Of course, he was no exception. However, everyone had their own limits. And this was his limit. If he went any further, he couldn't guarantee that he would be able to return in one piece. In comparison, Chu Luiyue easily surpassed the limits that most people could reach, and she was still moving forward. How could they not be jealous and envious? Cheng Pei felt especially uncomfortable. Forget it. No matter how talented she is, without a bloodline totem, it's useless. Thinking of this, he finally felt a little better. Ayu. She seems to be down there. After about an hour, Dumpling's excited voice sounded again. An idea popped up in Chu Luiyue's mind, and she immediately went down. Plop, her figure instantly disappeared from the lightning pool. Everyone only saw a flash of lightning. In a moment, Chu Luiyue's figure had completely disappeared from their sight. Where is she? Why did she suddenly disappear? Could it be that something has happened? The depths of the lightning pool are dangerous. Could it be that she couldn't hold on and fell down? But I didn't hear her call for help. For a moment, everyone had different opinions. Song Qing stared at the lightning pool and waited for a while. Seeing that Chu Luiyue still hadn't come up, he couldn't help but frown. The situation isn't right. Should we report to the fourth divine emissary? When everyone heard him say this, they looked at each other. Actually, it wasn't difficult to ask the fourth divine emissary, but, this matter, who was willing to do it? Cheng Pei had just come out of the lightning pool. When he heard this, he couldn't help but snort. Old song, this lightning pool has always been free to enter and leave. Life and death is one's own responsibility. Since she wants to go there, she has to pay the price for her choice. I heard that in the past, many people have died in this lightning pool. I've never heard of the fourth divine emissary taking the initiative to save anyone. Even if you report it now, I'm afraid it'll be futile. Everyone looked at each other and fell silent. Although Cheng Pei's words were unpleasant, they were the truth. No matter how one looked at it, the fourth divine emissary, and even the people present, had no obligation to help. Song Qing was conflicted for a moment and could only give up. It wasn't that he had a good relationship with Chu Luiyue, but he felt that she was still young. To be able to reach this step today, her talent was indeed extraordinary. It wasn't easy. Song Qing admired her a little. But now that they were in the illusory god palace, it was already very difficult for everyone to take care of themselves, let alone others. He could only hope that she could safely escape. Cheng Pei laughed as a cold light flashed in his eyes. If she could die here today, it would save him a lot of effort. Chu Luiyue dove down. Because the surroundings were filled with moving silver tin, it wasn't dark down there. Instead, it was bright. At a glance, she couldn't see the end. She followed Dumpling's direction and continued forward. After an unknown period of time, a golden light flashed not far in front of her. Chapter 22:22. Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks and looked in front. When she saw the scene before her, she held her breath. In front of her, behind the countless silver tunlei, a golden light flashed and shone brightly. Countless golden heavenly lightning intertwined with one another and formed a cluster. That huge ball of golden light existed silently in the depths of the lightning pool. Heavy, powerful, mysterious. This is... Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly. She almost thought that she was hallucinating. It was not that she had never seen golden Tianlei before. Back when she helped Lan Shao reconstruct his divine body, she even helped to trigger a few. However, the ones before her were uncountable. She stood there and seemed to be extremely small. Ayu, Grandpa Clan leader seems to be inside. Dumpling's voice woke her up. She frowned, and her heart skipped a beat. You're saying that inside the golden Tianlei? Yes, yes. Since they were already here, Dumpling's intuition should not be wrong. However, if Yizhao was really trapped in that ball of golden Tianlei, things would be troublesome. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. She braced herself and walked forward cautiously. With every step she took, the pressure on her body became even heavier. Her shoulders seemed to be carrying a heavy mountain, and her legs seemed to be filled with lead. The silver Tianlei swam around her body. She started to feel pain all over her body. With a thought, she summoned her divine body. The beautiful soft armor covered her body, and finally isolated her from the Tianlei. Although it could not completely cancel out the power of the Tianlei, it could at least make her feel more relaxed. As the distance between her and the ball of golden lightning decreased, she gradually sensed a familiar aura. It was indeed the same as Yizhao's aura. She gritted her teeth and continued forward. At the same time, at the heavenly gate, a burly man finally walked over from the bridge. His skin was dark and he looked strong. His arms were muscular, and there was a hammer hanging from his waist. Phew, we're finally here. Mitsui wiped the sweat off his forehead and let out a long sigh of relief. Ever since he received the news from his elder brother, he immediately rushed over without stopping. It had been a torturous journey. Fortunately, it seemed that he was not too late. He looked up at the divine gate in front of him and sighed. Right at this moment, a figure slowly walked over. Mitsui retracted his gaze and looked at the man. Their gazes met for a moment. Jin Yunlai walked to the gate of heaven and stood in front of Mitsui. I am the seventh divine envoy of the illusion god palace, Jin Yunlai. Shi Jing was stunned for a moment before he cupped his fist and bowed. So it's the seventh divine emissary. Sorry for the disrespect. You came alone? Jin Yunlai looked behind him and asked curiously. Mitsui nodded. That's right. Is there a problem? Jin Yunlai shook her head. It's nothing. However, when the gate of heaven opens, most people come in groups, and very few come alone. Mitsui chuckled and scratched his head. Oh, this? Actually, my master and the others have already arrived. I was delayed by some matters, so I came a little late. Jin Yunlai nodded. To be able to come alone, he must have some ability. He took out the book. Name. Mitsui. Then, the golden feather appeared in Jin Yunlai's hand. He raised his hand and the feather swept across Mitsui's forehead. It was blank. Jin Yunlai's expression changed slightly. Then, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something. Your master is Shangguanyu? Mitsui smiled. That's right. It seems that the seventh divine envoy has already met my master? Jin Yunlai paused for a moment, and her expression was cold. I am fully in charge of the gate of heaven's audit. Mitsui noticed that her mood seemed to have become much colder in an instant, and he felt a little strange. Jin Yunlai looked at him again. You are stronger than the previous two. Mitsui had already broken through to God. Although he did not have a bloodline totem, compared to Hua Shuangshuang and Little Hachi, it was not so difficult to accept. Then he handed over the tongue-shaped ball. Go in. He did not explain much to Mitsui. Seeing that Jin Yunlai's attitude was a little strange, Mitsui wanted to ask more, but seeing that she did not seem to have any intention of speaking, he did not continue to ask. After receiving the tongue-shaped ball, he thanked Jin Yunlai and stepped into the gate of heaven. Chu Luiyue stopped. At this moment, she had already arrived in front of the huge golden Tianlei. The silver Tianlei was suppressed and did not approach here. There was a circle of empty space around her. At this moment, she was standing here. The powerful pressure almost made her breathless, and the blood in her body seemed to have stopped flowing. All the divine power in her body was suppressed by an unprecedented level of suppression. She knew very well how dangerous this place was. Now, as long as she raised her hand, she would be able to touch the ball of light. The bright light was almost blinding, and it was difficult to look directly at it. Chu Luiyue endured the piercing pain in her eyes and stretched out her hand. Woo-woo, a sharp buzz could be heard all of a sudden. Several bolts of golden heavenly thunder instantly changed their direction and pierced straight at him like extremely sharp blades. In an instant, Chu Luiyue was enveloped. A chill suddenly rose from the bottom of her heart. Chu Luiyue knew that even if she could trigger the golden Tianlei, the simultaneous attack of almost 100 golden Tianlei was not something she could withstand. She didn't even think about it and wanted to retreat. However, the surrounding space had been completely controlled by these Tianlei, and there was no way she could escape at all. Chi! The golden Tianlei at the front had reached between her eyebrows in an instant. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly sank. However, at this moment, a buzzing sound came from her body. In the next moment, the golden heavenly lightning came to a stop. A few strands of hair on her forehead were cut off by the aftershock and quietly fell to the ground. A strange totem flashed between her eyebrows. An invisible and vast pressure spread out from her body. Chu Luiyue's heart beat quickly, and she only felt that the area between her eyebrows was boiling hot. She slowly raised her hand and touched the area between her eyebrows. The golden Tianlei suddenly retreated a little, and then timidly stuck to the back of her hand and rubbed against it. Chapter 22-23. Chu Luiyue was taken aback. The golden Tianlei gently brushed past the back of her hand with a warm warmth. It was careful, but there was an indescribable longing. Then, the surrounding golden Tianlei also rushed to her and tapped on her arm and shoulder. The fierce pressure from before completely dissipated at this moment, replaced by undisguised flattery and intimacy. Chu Luiyue blinked. This situation, you. They seem to know you. Dumpling's curious voice came from the bottom of her heart. Have you been here before? Chu Liyue's brows moved slightly. Of course not. Bang! Something bumped into her waist from behind, neither too lightly nor too heavily. She looked back and found that a few golden tianlei had run behind her. One of them was floating back. It was obviously the one that bumped into her just now. Actually, it didn't hurt, but Chu Liyue felt the dissatisfaction hidden in it. Dissatisfaction? Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows. She said she hadn't been here before, but why did the golden tianlei seem to be unhappy? But she was telling the truth. The illusion god palace opened the gate of heaven once every 10,000 years. How could she have been here before? Tuanzi murmured to herself, You seem to have angered them, Chu Liyue. She raised her hands silently. Then, no matter what, we've met today, haven't we? Everyone, can I trouble you to move aside? She still wanted to see the situation inside. Swoosh, swoosh. As soon as she finished speaking, the golden lightning in front of her immediately flew to the side, making a path in the middle. Dumpling exclaimed, So obedient. You, why don't you take them as your underlings? I'm so envious. Chu Liyue. His Dumpling was clearly a cute and adorable girl. Why was she always thinking about becoming a big sister and taking in underlings? For a moment, Chu Liyue wondered if he had led his child astray. However, she quickly suppressed these thoughts and walked forward. Without these layers of golden tianlei, there was only one last layer of golden tianlei in front of them. She focused her gaze and finally saw the scene in front of her. Then, she suddenly held her breath. In front of him, several golden tianlei formed a huge spherical cage. And at the very center of it all, a figure was bound by countless black chains. It was Yizhao. At this moment, his entire body was bound by chains. His body and the chains were stained with blood. He lowered his head slightly, and his messy hair covered most of his face. However, Chu Liyue could still see his extremely pale face and the corners of his lips that were still bleeding. Chu Liyue's pupils constricted. Her heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something. All the air in her chest was robbed, and she could barely breathe. She had never seen Yizhao in such a tragic state. Grandpa Chief. A reddish gold light suddenly flashed. Dumpling had already flown out and was about to charge in without thinking. Crush. The moment Dumpling appeared, the chains in the golden cage seemed to have sensed something and shook violently. Dumpling! Chu Liyue's mind was instantly alarmed. She quickly grabbed Dumpling back and hugged her tightly. An indescribable sense of danger surged in from all directions. Chu Liyue's heart suddenly hung in her throat. At this moment, the bound Yizhao finally moved. He slowly raised his head, and his pair of weathered eyes were suffused with a trace of scarlet. His blurry vision gradually became clear. Two familiar faces came into view. Immediately, Yizhao's expression changed abruptly. Why are they here? Hurry! Hurry up and leave! He spoke with difficulty. His voice was hoarse and harsh. These few simple words caused him to spit out another mouthful of blood. Crash! The black chains around him shook even more violently. Grandpa Chief! Dumpling's tears flowed out instantly. Large drops of hot tears fell onto the back of Chu Liyue's hand, causing her heart to tremble. At this moment, an unfamiliar and tyrannical aura suddenly came from afar. Who dares to invade the forbidden lightning pool? A deep, cold, and oppressive voice came from afar. Chu Liyue knew something was wrong. She immediately called Dumpling back and turned to leave. However, she hadn't run far when she felt her waist being hooked by something. She looked down and saw that it was an extremely sharp crimson sickle. If she had not summoned her divine body earlier, she would have been cut in half at the waist. Her figure moved, and like a nimble fish, she quickly broke away from him. However, the surrounding space was quickly solidifying. Trying to escape? Where can you escape to? In the blink of an eye, that person was already close to her. Chu Liyue's mind raced. At this moment, she could not escape. She might as well face the attack head-on. She simply turned around and looked at the person who had come. It was a burly young man. He held a sickle in his hand and wore blue and black armor. Countless silver tianlei extended from his body. He was very impressive. While Chu Luiyue was sizing him up, that person was also sizing her up. When he saw Chu Luiyue's face clearly, he frowned. Newcomer? Who gave you the courage to come here? Chu Luiyue almost immediately guessed the other party's identity. You are the fourth oracle? She asked tentatively. Mu Dongyu narrowed his eyes. That's right. I am the fourth oracle, Mu Dongyu. For you. He had seen everyone in the Illusion God Palace, but this face was very unfamiliar to him. After thinking for a while, he knew that this person should be a newcomer to the Illusion God Palace. Chu Luiyue knew it, but her expression was especially polite and respectful. Shengguan Yu greets the fourth oracle. Today's visit was purely a coincidence. I have no intention of offending you. Please forgive me. You are Shengguan Yu? Mu Dongyu's expression changed slightly when he heard this. Chu Luiyue's brows twitched slightly. Fourth oracle, you know me? Mu Dongyu laughed. I can't say that I know you, but you have been very famous in the Illusion God Palace recently. His tone was emotionless, and Chu Luiyue wasn't sure if he was praising or insulting her. But the most important thing now was to leave this place as soon as possible. I really didn't come here today for any other purpose. Swish! Before she could finish, she heard the sound of something breaking through the air. A cold light flashed in Chu Luiyue's eyes, but she didn't move in the end. That sharp sickle was placed on her neck. Chu Luiyue's blood seemed to have frozen at this moment. Mu Dongyu's eyes were cold as she said word by word. What did you just see? Chapter 22-24. There was dead silence all around. After a moment, Chu Luiyue heard her own voice. Golden Tianlei. Mu Dongyu's scythe was even closer to her, as if it would cut her in the next moment. What else? He continued to ask. His gaze seemed to be tangible. When it landed on her body, it seemed to be sharper than his scythe. Those with weaker willpower wouldn't even dare to look him in the eye. Chu Luiyue's eyes were fixed and her expression was magnanimous. Nothing else. Mu Dongyu stared at her, as if he was judging the credibility of her words. The two sides fell into a silent and almost suffocating confrontation. After an unknown period of time, Mu Dongyu finally retracted his scythe. You don't want to know the consequences of lying to me. His cold tone still carried a warning and threat. But it was obvious that he believed Chu Luiyue's words for the time being. This wasn't because he believed in Chu Luiyue, but because he believed in the defense of the forbidden lightning pool. Under the layers of barriers, ordinary people couldn't get close at all, let alone others. Thank you, fourth divine envoy. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, just now, she had sensed that something was wrong and immediately grabbed Dumpling to run. At that time, the surrounding golden tianlei had also quickly returned to its original state. When Mu Dongyu arrived, she saw that Chu Luiyue was still some distance away from the golden tianlei. If not for this, Chu Luiyue knew that it would be extremely difficult for her to escape. She turned her gaze slightly and quickly glanced at the golden tianlei that had returned to its original position. The glow was rippling, shining brightly, and the pressure was clear. If it wasn't for the faint pain in her lower back, she would have thought that everything just now was just a dream. She lowered her eyes, hiding the emotions in them. I didn't know this was the forbidden lightning pool. I offended you for a moment. I hope the fourth divine envoy will forgive me. I will leave quickly. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she was about to leave. Wait. Mu Dongyu suddenly spoke. Chu Luiyue paused and slowly turned around. Fourth oracle, is there anything else? Mu Dongyu stared at her for a while. Your divine body came from the god-destroying tribulation? There was no way he would mistake the brilliant light that flashed across her body. Chu Luiyue nodded. No wonder. Mu Dongyu murmured in relief. Even though it's a grave crime for you to trespass on the forbidden grounds, I'll let you off this time on account that you're a newcomer. In addition, being able to come here alone is sufficient to show your talent. Mu Dongyu was responsible for guarding this place all year round, but this was the first time that a god had broken into this place. Hence, he admired Chu Luiyue quite a bit. Chu Luiwei did not expect him to say this and was stunned for a moment. Mu Dongyu's eyes swept over the tongue on her waist, and a hint of regret appeared in her eyes. What a pity, Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. She had to admit that she was getting tired of hearing those two words recently. Unfortunately, she could not say anything now. However, when the golden Tianlei flew over to attack her, the space between her eyebrows was boiling hot. This situation had happened more than once, but Chu Luiwei herself did not know what was going on. She could not even control when it appeared and when it disappeared. The corners of her lips curled up and she said, "Things like bloodline totems are destined. Instead of wasting time on them, I might as well use the time to do other meaningful things." "You thought it through." Mu Dongyu chuckled. At first, he did not take Chu Luiwei to heart, but after hearing what she said, he felt that this girl's character was very open-minded, which was quite rare. "Alright, you can go back. If you want to cultivate in the future, just do it in the area outside. Don't come here again." Mu Dongyu shook her head. "There won't be a next time." "Yes." Chu Luiwei nodded and left. After her figure disappeared into the distance, Mu Dongyu turned back to look. In the lightning pool, the golden Tianlei was silent. He stared at it for a long time. Shijing quickly found the courtyard where Cin Yi and the others lived. He had just arrived at the door when the door opened from the inside. Cin Yi was standing at the door. Shijing immediately grinned. "Big brother." Cin Yi nodded. "You came quickly." As he spoke, he walked in. Mitsui followed him and said with a smile, "After I received Big Brother's news, I immediately rushed over here without stopping to rest. Fortunately, I'm not too late." As he spoke, he looked around the courtyard. "Where's Master? Isn't he here?" "Master is in the lightning pool and hasn't returned yet." Cin Yi said. "Lightning pool?" Shijing looked in a certain direction. "Over there?" Although it was quite a distance away, the vigorous power of the Tianlei was still very easy to distinguish. Cin Yi nodded. "You can go take a look if you have time. It's a good place." "Ah? Okay." Shijing didn't think too much about it. In any case, Big Brother was right. At this moment, Hua Shuangshuang also walked out of the room. "Fourth brother, you're here? You've already become a venerable god." Hua Shuangshuang was stunned. "Haven't you always been in Tianling? How did you break through so quickly?" He was still a venerable god. Shijing laughed. "Second brother, it's not that I'm too fast, it's that you're too slow. Although Tianling is outside the Divine Ruins world, there are still a few places that are very suitable for cultivation. I returned to Dahuang Swamp a few times and stayed there for a while. After that, I went to the Divine Ruins world and broke through." "Dahuang Swamp?" "Yes, I went to Mirror Lake. I wanted to go to Red Moon Desert to take a look, but that place was already sealed. Ordinary people couldn't enter at all, so I didn't go." Hua Shuangshuang nodded. She knew that Shijing had been staying in the Mystic Forest with Cin Yi a few years ago. But later, the Mystic Forest was destroyed, and Master brought Dumpling back, so they never went there again. In the 13 Yugard, there were probably not many people who knew Dahuang Swamp better than the two of them. It was normal that he would go back. Shijing looked at Cin Yi. "Big brother, why did you ask me to come here in such a hurry?" Chang Wanzhou came to a courtyard. This was Liang He's residence. He knocked on the door. Knock knock. Liang He quickly walked out of the room. "Who is it?" He came to the courtyard and saw Chang Wanzhou standing outside. He hesitated. These are your things?" "I'm returning them." Chang Wanzhou took out all the herbs and placed them at the door. Then he was about to leave. Liang He was dumbfounded and hurriedly shouted, "Wait!" Chang Wanzhou paused and turned around. There was no expression on his exquisite and cold face. "Is there anything else?" Liang He was stared at by those clear and cold eyes. For a moment he didn't know what to say. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Psst, Little Hachi's idea?" Chang Wanzhou narrowed his eyes. "She's Master's woman. You're not worthy of her." Chapter 22-25. His tone was very calm. But it was also because of this that it was so blunt, harsh, and even embarrassing. Liang He's expression changed slightly. He was the youngest supreme doctor in the illusion god palace, and his future was limitless. Even the 8th divine emissary, Shu Jing, had to be polite to him. Although he wasn't very noble, he was definitely in the upper middle class. But now, he was being said to be climbing the social ladder? He couldn't accept this no matter what. Young master, please be more polite with your words. I'm in love with little Hachi, and I'm sincerely pursuing her. But no matter how bad it is, between us, you can't say that I'm climbing the social ladder, right? Liang He's expression was somewhat cold. Of course, he knew who this young man was talking about. In the past few days, Shengguan Yu's name had spread far and wide. Although she didn't complete the star path, she easily broke Mu Yafeng's record. Just this point alone was enough for everyone in the illusion god palace to remember her. Under normal circumstances, with her extraordinary talent and potential, it was enough to make many people scramble to befriend her. But she didn't have a bloodline totem. Just this point alone was enough to erase everything about her. And it wasn't just her. The people who came with her were all like this. Even little Hachi wasn't an exception. It was only because he liked little 8 that he had always been polite to them. But he didn't expect that in the end, the other party would say such words. Chang Wanzhou's face was still expressionless, as if he didn't hear Liang He's words at all. Are you done? Liang He was startled. Chang Wanzhou turned and left. You? Liang He suddenly felt his chest tighten. The other party's nonchalant attitude really made him very uncomfortable in his heart. He looked at the herbs piled up at the door, and his mood became even more gloomy. After thinking for a while, he finally couldn't help but step forward and say in a low voice, "There are some words that you might not like to hear, so I haven't said them. But now I have to say them out loud. None of you have a bloodline totem. You won't even last a month in the illusory god palace. Even if he could rely on some means to stay for a while longer, the final result would be the same. However, if little Hachi is willing to be with me, at the very least, I can keep her here." Chang Wanzhou stopped in his tracks. She hasn't fallen to such a state yet. After he finished speaking, he paid no further attention to Liang He and directly left. Liang He furrowed his brows, and something seemed to be surging in his heart. Unreasonable. Could it be that these people are still living in a dream? Did he really think that he could stay here with his little talent and strength? Plop. Chu Luiwei rushed out from the lightning pool. She glanced back. She was already quite a distance away from that place, and she could barely see that patch of gold. However, the scene just now was still vivid in his mind. Although it was risky, they finally confirmed that Yi Zhao was there. "I'll just come back when I have the chance." She suppressed the thoughts in her heart and turned to walk towards the shore. Chu Liuyue's reappearance caused an uproar among the people on the shore. "That's Shengguan Yu? It's really her. She's still alive?" Cheng Pei, who was waiting for news of Chu Liuyue's death, noticed the commotion and immediately looked over. When he saw that familiar face, his heart sank. She's been down there for so long, but she's still alive? Why is this Shengguan Yu so tough? Digression. Wow, I've seen so many deduced endings, and I have to admit that some of them are really interesting. Come back at 6. Chapter 22-26. However, Song Qing and the others were more concerned about something else. That's not right. She was almost at the deepest part of the lightning pool. Logically speaking, she shouldn't have survived. Why did she come out unscathed? To them, that was a place that they couldn't get close to. However, not only did Chu Luiwei go there easily, but she even stayed there for a long time. She only came back leisurely when everyone thought that she had died in the lightning pool. They were both gods, but wasn't the gap between them a little too great? Chu Luiwei stared at everyone's shocked gazes as she went ashore. Everyone's gaze was focused on her face and body. Her face was beautiful and her color was just right. Her figure was slender, and she was exquisite. Not only was there no trace of blood on her body, but there wasn't even a wrinkle on her clothes. Those who didn't know would think that she had just gone out to have fun. The way everyone looked at her became more and more strange. The Shangguanyu? Was there really something wrong with her? Why is everyone looking at me? Chu Luiyue stood still and looked up with a smile. Her tone was relaxed, and her lips were full of smiles. Everyone fell silent. After a moment, the first to speak was Chengpei. Shangguanyu, you just went to the deepest part of the lightning pool? He frowned and asked in disbelief. Chu Luiyue nodded casually. Yes, I went there for a walk, but there didn't seem to be anything interesting, so I came back. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with you asking yourself? Everyone was in a mess. They were still at the edge of the lightning pool. It was very difficult for them to take another step in. She went straight to the deepest part of the lightning pool, and in the end she said that it was boring? Have you ever considered their feelings? Chengpei was so angry that he couldn't speak. His face was red and white. He also wanted to say a few words to refute Chu Luiyue, but everyone saw clearly that Chu Luiyue went there and came back unscathed. What else could they say? Previously, he had imagined that she would die inside, but now, not only did she not die, she seemed to have devoured a lot of Tianlei's power. The aura on her body was clearly much stronger than before. Chengpei was upset and his chest felt suffocated. With great difficulty, he managed to squeeze out a sentence. Heh, looks like I've really underestimated you. It's not too late to realize this. Chu Luiyue interrupted him with a smile. Then he revealed a look of surprise. That's right, didn't Senior Chengpei say that he wanted to enter the lightning pool to temper his divine body? Why didn't you go? Pucci. Someone at the side suddenly laughed out loud. Chengpei's expression turned even uglier. Chu Luiyue blinked, then suddenly understood. Oh, so Senior Chengpei has already been there and came out again? How long has it been? Based on this speed, how long will it take for you to completely temper your divine body? Chengpei was furious. He flung his sleeves. You don't have to worry about this. After all, you don't even know how long you can stay here. So what if he's slow? It's better than her coming here without any hope. Chu Luiyue nodded sincerely. Then, I wish you all the best. I also hope that before I leave this place, I can see that you have made some obvious progress. Oh right, there's one more thing. Chu Luiyue took a step forward and suddenly turned back. I forgot to remind everyone that the fourth divine envoy is guarding the center of the lightning pool. Don't go near it. Everyone was shocked. Song Qing asked, You saw the fourth divine envoy there? Chu Luiyue nodded. The fourth divine envoy was magnanimous and let me go this time. However, it's hard to say if someone else dares to barge in again. That's all I have to say. Everyone, please be careful. Many people looked at each other in silence. What was the use of knowing this? They wouldn't be able to reach that place. If she hadn't said that she was also warned by the fourth divine envoy, everyone would have thought that she was showing off. Chu Luiyue didn't care about how they were going to leave. He straightened his collar and left. After leaving the lightning pool, the smile on Chu Luiyue's face gradually disappeared. A hint of graveness colored the corners of his eyes. Although he already knew Yizhao's whereabouts, it was still very troublesome to save him. Not to mention the fourth divine envoy guarding outside, just the countless golden Tianlei and black chains formed a cage that was difficult to break free from. He didn't need to think to know that once there was any movement, it would definitely be noticed. And this was the Illusion God Palace. She and Dumpling were restricted everywhere. It would be even harder to bring them out. Dumpling? Chu Luiyue called Dumpling a few times in his heart. After a while, Dumpling's sobbing voice could be heard. Are we unable to save Grandpa Patriarch? She had always been by Chu Luiyue's side. She had seen all the dangers and difficulties they had encountered along the way. Even if Chu Luiyue didn't say it, she knew how difficult it would be. Chu Luiyue sighed and softened his voice. Dumpling, don't worry. Although they have locked up Senior Yizhao, they don't seem to have any intention of taking his life. We still have time and a chance. Yizhao's situation was very bad. He was already on the verge of death. But it was also because of this that Chu Luiyue could conclude that the other party didn't really want to take Yizhao's life. At least, they didn't want to. Otherwise, Yi Zhao wouldn't have been able to live until now. After hearing Chu Liyue's words, Dumpling was relieved and asked softly. Then what should we do? That divine envoy looked so fierce. Other than the fourth divine envoy, where are the other divine envoys? And where is the person who captured Yi Zhao? Chu Liyue paused for a moment and said softly but firmly. There must be a way. She quickly returned to her residence. As soon as she arrived at the door, she felt a rather familiar aura inside. She was slightly stunned. The next moment, she saw Mitsui's figure suddenly appear. Master, you're back. Chu Liyue's eyes lit up. Mitsui, why are you here? Mitsui chuckled. I heard from Big Brother that you're all here. I thought that the matter at Tianling was almost settled, so I came over. Chu Liyue walked over and looked at him carefully. You've already broken through to God Venerable? This cultivation speed was really fast. Mitsui simply repeated the reason why he and Hua Shuangshuang had met before. Only then did Chu Liyue feel relieved. Mitsui's talent was indeed extremely outstanding, and his temperament was extremely stable on the path of cultivation. It wasn't too surprising that he could reach where he was today. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Chu Liyue looked back curiously. Who would be here at this time? I'll open the door. As Shijing spoke, he strode over with large strides. Creak. A familiar face appeared in front of him. Chu Liyue was stunned. Miss Mu. Chapter 22-27. It was Mu Yafeng standing outside the door. Shijing turned around and asked, Master, do you know her? Chu Liyue nodded. Miss Mu, what's the matter? Mu Yafeng looked past Shijing and at Chu Liyue. I do have something to discuss with Miss Shangguan. Chu Liyue smiled. Ms. Mu, if there's anything, just say it. Mu Yafeng, however, looked a little troubled. I wonder if Miss Shangguan can talk to me in private? Chu Liyue understood. It seemed that it was not an ordinary matter. Well, Miss Mu couldn't come here in person for an ordinary matter. Miss Mu, please come in. Mu Yafeng followed Chu Liyue into her room. After both sides sat down, Chu Liyue went straight to the point. There's no one else here now. Miss Mu, you can speak. Mu Yafeng crossed her hands and seemed to hesitate. After a moment, she finally spoke. Actually, I'm here this time to make a deal with Miss Shangguan. Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly. I have a way to let Miss Shangguan and the others stay in the illusory God Palace. If you need anything in the future, I'll try my best to find it for you. Mu Yafeng said word by word. She thought that Chu Liyue would be surprised and excited to hear this. However, contrary to her expectations, the woman opposite her had a faint smile on her face, and her expression didn't change at all. After she finished speaking, Chu Liyue asked unhurriedly, What do you want, Miss Mu? Mu Yafeng's conditions were undoubtedly very generous. For people without bloodline totems, this was undoubtedly the greatest temptation. Mu Yafeng dared to offer such conditions, which could only mean that she wanted a lot. Mu Yafeng bit her lip. For a moment, she felt that all her thoughts had been seen through by Chu Liyue. This feeling made her very uncomfortable. It shouldn't be like this. Could it be that she didn't care at all if she could stay in the illusory God Palace? Even if she didn't care, what about her subordinates? Did they not care at all? Chu Liyue's nonchalant attitude instantly gave Mu Yafeng the illusion that the conditions he offered couldn't move the other party at all. This woman's thoughts were extremely deep. With that thought in mind, Mu Yafeng took a deep breath and looked up at Chu Liyue. Miss Shangguan is also a smart person, so I'll be frank, I want the mythical flame diagram. Now, Miss Shangguan has obtained the opportunity to copy the Xian formation diagrams of the precious treasure pavilion. The mythical flame diagram might be among them. If Miss Shangguan is willing to help, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Miss Mu. Chu Liyue interrupted her, I can't help you with this. Mu Yafeng's face stiffened. Actually, she had no choice but to come here. The last part of the Xian formations on the star path were extremely complicated and difficult to comprehend. She went back and studied it for a long time, but she still didn't have a clue. A Xian formation was already so difficult for her. She really didn't know how long and how much effort it would take for the rest to comprehend. But she really didn't want to wait hopelessly anymore. More importantly, she realized that with her current strength, it was impossible to comprehend all of them in a short period of time. Even as she wasn't sure if she could really comprehend all the Xian formations. Now, many people in the illusory god palace were secretly discussing when she would be able to complete the star path. If they knew that she didn't have the confidence and ability, then, at that time, there would be countless people waiting to see her make a fool out of herself. So, after realizing this, she made up her mind to get the mythical flame diagram. With the annotations and pointers on it, these problems would definitely be solved. The precious treasure pavilion wouldn't be able to get through. They had always guarded these places very strictly. Moreover, for some reason, the second master, Jianghu, and the others were much colder to her than before. After thinking about it, she could only come to Chu Luiyue, hoping to get the mythical flame diagram from her. But she didn't expect that the moment she opened her mouth, she would be rejected before she could even finish speaking. Miss Shangguan, although I haven't been in the illusory god palace for long, I still know some rules. Chu Luiyue's red lips curled up, but her black jade-like eyes were cold. If I give you the mythical flame diagram, wouldn't that be equivalent to betraying the precious treasure pavilion? Although she wasn't a member of the precious treasure pavilion, from a certain point of view, they were in a cooperative relationship. Zhu trusted her and directly gave it to her. If she turned around and made a deal with Mu Yafeng, Miss Shangguan, I know this is a bit difficult for you. But I really need it. How about this? You don't have to give me the whole thing, I only want a part of it. Not even half of it. Chu Luiyue stood up. If Miss Mu has no other business with me today, I won't keep you. Please. Mu Yafeng's face turned green. Was she asking her to leave? Her hands clenched tightly in her sleeves, and she suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and asked, Miss Shangguan, if you don't say anything and I don't say anything, no one will know. Anyway, you're going to copy the Xian formation, so what if you copy a few more for me? Moreover, using these to exchange for the right to stay in the illusory god palace forever is definitely not a loss for you, right? Chu Luiyue looked at the letter at her waist and sighed. To be honest, we're not even in a hurry about this, so I really don't know why each of you is so concerned about it. If you can stay, stay. If you can't, leave. Isn't this simple? Everyone is relying on their own abilities, so why go through so much trouble? Her main purpose of coming here was to find Dabao and the others and save them. As for the rest, she really didn't take it to heart. What's more, cheating is like being pregnant. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. How can you say that it's a little pregnant? Chu Luiyue's words made Mu Yafeng's face turn completely cold. So, you really don't want to help? It's not that I don't want to, it's that I can't. Chu Luiyue put her hands on the table, leaned forward, and looked at Mu Yafeng condescendingly. Miss Mu, you don't really think that if you rely on other methods to comprehend the remaining Xian formations, no one will be able to see it, right? Mu Yafeng's lips trembled slightly. What do you mean by that? Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly. Nothing. I'm just reminding you that the seventh divine envoy is not a fool. Jin Yunlai must be very clear about Mu Yafeng's talent. If she really soared to the sky, how could he not guess what was going on? Mu Yafeng gritted her teeth. Are you saying that my talent is low? Chu Luiyue said honestly, it's not high anyway. Chapter 22-28. A fire suddenly rose from the bottom of Mu Yafeng's heart. She had been in the illusory god palace for many years and had always been the envy and admiration of everyone. When had anyone ever said that her aptitude was low? However, the person who said this was Chu Luiyue. No matter how much she didn't want to admit it, she knew that compared to her, she was slightly inferior. Therefore, even if she was filled with anger and unwillingness after hearing this, she had no right to refute. Mu Yafeng was so angry that she laughed. Compared to Miss Shangguan, that bit of talent of mine is indeed not worth mentioning. But, so what? Without a bloodline totem, you can't stay in the illusory god palace. Ascending to the heavens and becoming a god is even more unattainable. Miss Mu, you don't have to worry about this. Chu Liuyue's red lips curved, giving a gentle and sincere smile. At least for this period of time, I will still help Treasure Pavilion copy the Xian formations. As for the rest, I'll just take it one day at a time. Some things can't be forced, so why make things difficult for yourself? It's better to accept it. Mu Yafeng choked. On the other hand, Miss Mu, if you have the time and energy to be opportunistic, why don't you go back and study Xian formations more? Perhaps it will be more useful. Of course, if you really can't understand it, it only proves that the illusory god palace is also out of your reach. Chu Liyue straightened up and raised her hand to send her off. Miss Mu, please. Mu Yafeng stood up with a bang. Her eyes seemed to be burning with flames. Sheng Guanyu, you will regret today's choice. Chu Liyue didn't seem to hear her threat and warning, smiling faintly. I just walked around the thunder pool and am a little tired, so I won't see you out. Mu Yafeng was speechless. She gritted her teeth and turned to leave. Shi Jing was standing in the courtyard and was a little confused when he saw Mu Yafeng leave with an ashen face. What's wrong with this Miss Mu? Wasn't she very polite when she came just now? Why did she change her attitude in the blink of an eye? Chu Liyue said, in the future, there's no need to open the door when she comes. Shi Jing hurriedly responded, yes. Chu Liyue's brows raised. However, it was also very likely that he would not come again. She looked around. Where is Xiaozhou? She hadn't seen anyone since she came back. Based on his character, he didn't seem like someone who would go out casually. As soon as he finished speaking, a familiar figure appeared outside the door. It was Chang Wanzhou. He lowered his head slightly and seemed to be distracted. Little boat? Chu Liyue raised his voice. Chang Wanzhou came back to his senses and looked up. Chu Liyue saw that he was somewhat absent-minded and felt a little strange. Where have you been? Chang Wanzhou paused. I felt a little bored, so I went out for a walk. Chu Liyue thought about it and agreed. Ever since they came here, they really didn't go out much. You always said that you had a headache. Is it better now? Chang Wanzhou nodded. Much better. Chu Liyue smiled. That's good. We don't know how long we will stay here. You don't have to think too much. Just do your own things. Chang Wanzhou nodded and entered the house again. He took a cloth and began to clean the place. Chu Liyue wanted to say that this place was quite clean and that there was no need to clean it. However, she felt that Chang Wanzhou seemed to be a little uneasy, so she didn't say that. He had his own way of handling things. Chu Liyue thought for a moment and shouted to the other room, Sun Yi, come here for a moment. Sun Yi quickly came over. Master, why did you call me here? Chu Liyue raised her hand and set up a barrier to block out the sound to ensure that their conversation would not be heard by the people outside. Then she came in front of Sun Yi and said, Sun Yi, I want to enter the lightning pool to save someone. Sun Yi's long and indifferent eyes narrowed slightly. After a moment, he asked, previously, Master went there for this matter? Chu Liyue wasn't surprised that he guessed it. She nodded slightly. Senior Yi Zhao is trapped in the depths of the lightning pool and is strictly guarded by the fourth divine envoy. It will be extremely difficult to save him. Do you have any ideas? Sun Yi was silent for a long while. With clan leader Yi Zhao's strength, the person who can bring him here and imprison him definitely can't be underestimated. Moreover, the relevant defenses must be extremely complicated. It won't be easy to save him silently and without attracting anyone's attention. Chu Liyue sighed. I know. It's just that. However, she really couldn't just stand by and watch it happen. Yi Zhao had a cold and arrogant personality. Back then, he even threatened her to break the contract with Dumpling. However, to be fair, he was indeed very good to Dumpling. And later, he even began to love her because of her. For the sake of Tuanzi, he helped her a lot. She had always remembered this kindness in her heart. Now that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was in trouble, Yi Zhao must have paid a huge price to protect the many clansmen of the Phoenix God Mountain. As for himself, he had been reduced to such a state. No matter how she looked at it, she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. So you don't have any ideas? Sun Yi shook his head. There is a way, but it's a little troublesome. Chu Liyue's eyes lit up. What is it? Let me hear it first. As long as there was a way, she had to try it first before knowing whether it would work or not. Sun Yi's brows twitched. There is a way to break any mechanism. It's just that the degree of difficulty is different. The crux of this matter is that once clan leader Yi Zhao escapes, he will definitely be noticed. Chu Liyue frowned. This was what gave her the biggest headache. That's right. Previously, I only got a little closer and glanced at Senior Yi Zhao, and it attracted the fourth divine envoy. Sun Yi said, actually, it's not difficult to solve this problem. We just need to find a substitute and steal the day in the chaos. A white light suddenly flashed across Chu Liyue's mind. You mean, as long as the fake is real enough, this plan will work? Chu Liyue instantly understood Sun Yi's meaning. First, they would muddy the waters, then take advantage of the chaos to rescue people and replace them with a fake. As long as they could fool those people, nothing would be discovered. This was indeed a method, but it was extremely difficult to implement. Where can I find a substitute for Senior Yi Zhao? He is the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Chu Liyue fell into deep thought, her brows tightly knitted. The aura of every member of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was unique and irreplaceable. Not to mention the clan leader Yi Zhao. How could anyone in this world be able to impersonate him? Actually, the problem of appearance is very easy to solve. The key is aura. Sun Yi. The main reason why clan leader Yi Zhao is special is that he is the only person in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan who has opened the 7th meridian. If we can separate a portion of his qi and blood from his body, we can pass off the fake as the real one. Chu Liyue rubbed her temples and sighed. I'm afraid that won't work. He's locked up there and can't get close at all, let alone other things. Sun Yi looked at her quietly. There's a second method. Find another Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix who has opened the 7th meridian. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.